guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Anna and I'm a little bit spooky, and today we're diving into a little bit of education. We're going to talk a little bit of color theory, and I want to talk about how to wear blue eyeshadow. So this is going to be a new series that we'll be doing over here, and I'm going to show you kind of how to wear a tricky color that might give you a little trouble. You can't quite nail it down to work on your skin tone or just what to pair with it. So we're going to talk about what to pair with blue eyeshadow first, and I'm going to do a couple of videos focused around each color. That way you can see some options and some variety. But I wanted to start off with something I think is probably the most requested color that I think is like kind of the most challenging, and that's blue. And I wanted to use this kind of bright, cobalty, typical blue that we see in almost every warm tone palette, that pop of blue shade. You know what I'm talking about. Paired with the warm shades, I wanted to show you just kind of how to do that, how to pair the colors to make them complement one another. Now, your placement is going to be all up to you. This is purely just the color pairing rather than the placement. That is going to be a personal preference thing. I just went for all over the lid because that's the kind of look I like. So yeah, if this interests you and you want to see how I got this look, and we'll talk a little bit of color theory, just go ahead and keep on watching. But before you do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know if you like this type of videos. I will be continuing this series with a few other colors such as green, purple, yellow, whatever you want to see. Let me know, maybe red eyeshadow, and I will also be breaking those colors down into a couple of little other videos focused on kind of a color story. So yeah, if that interests you, just go ahead and keep on watching, and let's get into this video. So let's talk about this pop of blue that you see in every palette and why it's in there. It is in there because it's a complementary shade to all those warm tones that are in that warm tone palette. They are directly across the color wheel from one another, therefore they complement one another. It is a little bit science, a little bit theory, a little bit art. For some reason, our brains are attracted to certain color combinations and they're appealing. Therefore, that's colors that work together, and they tend to be complementary shades, analogous shades, and in more of a triadic type of shade combination. This is not a strict science. This is a theory. You can play, mix what you want, and go from there. But I think it helps to learn the theory behind these things. That way you can really go to town and have fun, unlock more creativity, and with less frustration of things not working out. That's why I love that Robert Welch says that makeup, there's no rules to makeup, but there is a theory. And the same applies to color, to art, to most of these types of things that are more creatively driven, is there are some theories about, you know, what's appealing to the eye, what feels kind of like it works, like what your eye is naturally attracted to when it comes to makeup or colors. That's the color theory. Is just basically a small, not really a law, but just a theory. I don't know another word to describe it, but it's something that attracts the eye and just feels like they work together. To me, it's kind of an instinctual thing. I come from a family of artists. That's just, I grew up with it. And I can just go with instinct on these things of what I think looks good. But not everybody has that natural ability to say, oh, those colors work together. So that's where learning a little bit about the color wheel could definitely come in handy for you. I will leave a really good link below and resource on just learning about colors and color theory and all of that, just for a basic knowledge. But today we're going to focus on the color blue and why certain colors work with blue and therefore make it really easy to wear on the eye and look flattering on most skin tones. So blue is our hue. That is our pure color. I know we color eyeshadows shades a lot, but that's not a very accurate description of the color itself. When you're talking art theory, it's the shade is how much black is in there, and the depth and the intent is bringing light back in, and tone is adding gray. So technically it's hue is what we need, what we should be talking about. But anyway, we're going to work with blue today. That is the color that we're going to be focusing on and what works with blue. Now, of course, you can go a monochromatic, which is analogous type of color story where you stick with shades of blue and blend them out. However, that isn't always the most flattering thing on the face. Applying color theory to the face is a little different than just designing a poster or something like that. It has to work with one's skin tone as well and play well with the hair, the eyes, the skin tone, and it's just a little bit trickier and different. And in this case, I think a complementary shade really is the way to go, such as pairing orange with blue. Now, we're not going to take literal orange. We're going to take a shade of orange or a tint of orange and incorporate that to ground the look and give the blue something to blend into. And with that orange shade, we're picking one that can flow into our skin tone. So you're going to start with like a transition shade, something like your bronzer shade, maybe a little more orange if you want. Which way you feel like works best on you. You could even take it in more of a peachy direction, and that may flatter you more. If you have a cooler undertone, I would say go more peach. If you're a warmer undertone, go more reddy orange. Maybe a little yellow in there would be beautiful. On me, I'm very neutral. I can go either way, make it work. Orange is the complement to blue, so therefore they just kind of work together, and I feel like orange is easy to blend into most skin tones or a peachy warm brown type of shade like that. And usually in a palette you get kind of a gradient of shades. Somewhere in there there's like a transition shade, and that would be something that can flow into your skin tone as well as into that crease shade to blend and make everything flow and look cohesive. And therefore you have something for that blue to sit on and kind of frame the blue and ground it so it's not so abrupt. That's kind of the trick with blue, is keeping it from looking abrupt and looking like Mimi Bobek in the end. You know what I mean? You don't want to look like Mimi. Now, what tone of orange that you choose or warm brown is going to be completely up to you and your skin tone and your preferences. Sometimes I think going a little bit more cool pinky, as in like a peachy color, would work better with a cooler undertone, whereas you can go quite warm and almost reddy undertoned when you're of a little bit more of a warmer skin tone. And the depth level of that shade is going to depend on your skin tone. I'm of course a ghost, as you can see, so I don't want to go too terribly deep, but this theory of how I'm applying the eyeshadows can apply to anyone. It just is going to come down to your choice of tone and your depth and, you know, the shades that you choose. The deeper you are, you'll want to go deeper with your shades, obviously, and a little more vibrant with them. I think this color blue is absolutely stunning on deeper skin tones. It is a little bit more easy to pull off, especially if you have darker eyes. It just, it looks so beautiful against brown eyes and it makes them pop. Whereas on blue eyes, it can kind of compete, which is a struggle, and also on paler skin tones, depending on your undertone, which you pair it with, it can come off quite sickly. And that is something I've struggled with blue, is it making me look just kind of flat and dead, especially because I have very light blue eyes. That can kind of wash them out, and they just look bleh, like it'll look unwell. But on me personally, I find pairing the blue with a warm tone really livens up the look. The warm tone, especially if it has a little bit of orange in there, complements the blue of my eyes, therefore makes them pop and still hold their own against the blue eyeshadow. And now we kind of covered a little bit of color theory there. I don't want to go into too much depth over it in detail because we would be here all day, and it's a lot, and I'm not a college professor. I'm not here to teach you full-on art theory. That is what I wanted to be when I was in high school, though, was an art professor who taught theory and color theory and all that. I'm a nerd for this kind of thing in design. But anyway, let's talk about a few tips and tricks on how to make these colors work on any skin tone. Honestly, the best way is to take your bronzer shade. Now, I'm willing to guess that you have a bronzer in your collection that works for you, that complements your skin tone. It's one that flows with your skin to look like it belongs there, but just add that warmth and a little bit of depth to the face. You can use that bronzer in your transition to help marry in those warm browns and make them feel like it's just a natural flow and like they belong. And having those shades looking like they belong helps the blue just feel a little more at home on the face and not so stark and abrupt. it just makes it work. It's just magic. It's color, it's illusion, trick of the eye. It just works. Just take my word for it. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, taking like a shade like your bronzer though, just really does help kind of ground the look and make it cohesive with the rest of the face. You know, obviously you're going to use that bronzer on the rest of the face as well, which I'm going to show you how I do that later on this video. How I make this blue flow into this orange without looking muddy and gross and getting out of hand, and having the orange shades flow into my skin tone without looking too stark and abrupt. Now I'm going to go a little bit heavier on my eyeshadow today just to illustrate the point so you can see it on camera. In reality, I would probably tone it down just a little bit, but it's kind of hard to translate on film the colors because things get a little washed out under studio lighting. But yeah, that's basically the premise of today's video. I'm just going to show you how I got this look using blue and orange and kind of showing how they complement one another to create a great look on just about anybody. I mean, I really can't think of a skin tone that couldn't pull off a look similar to this. You would just need to tweak your shade and your tone just a tad to make it flow with your skin tone. And I am going to be doing some more examples of looks like that in the future coming up, because I am very kind of neutral with my skin tone, so I can go either way with it. So I'm going to show you a very cool tone, maybe analogous type of look, and then we'll do a more peachy and blue look and showing you kind of the shades of blue that work best with those colors to me and my personal preference. A lot of this is coming from my preferences and how I enjoy to do makeup, and coming from somebody who studied color theory and has done design and grew up around it. It's just but mostly, like with most art, it is pretty subjective, and it's just up to you and how you feel and what makes you feel good inside, what makes you tick, you know, what gets you going. So with that being said, let's just dive into the actual tutorial portion of the video and talk a little bit more, and I hope you learned something. And if you have any suggestions and ideas down below, let me know. I am so open to discussion. I'm kind of feeling this out a little bit as we go here. I'm not used to doing very educational videos. It's been a long time since I've really taught this kind of thing. I did a little bit actually when I was in high school. I taught an art survey class as kind of like, you know, a TA type of thing. So it's been a long time since I've formally tried to educate people on these subjects and have my correct terminology and all that, and not just be like, it just works because it works. It's been a while, so go easy on me. Let's go ahead and get into that tutorial portion, and hopefully I relay the points that I want to relay. So as I said, we'll be doing a blue look today, and we're gonna be sticking kind of in this color family right here with the more orangey warm browns going into the blues right here. And for this look, we'll be using the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. Now, you don't have to use the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette to create this look. This is not the most unique color story. This is something that is pretty accessible on the market. The warm browns and the pop of blue is a very common color story. So I'm willing to bet you have these shades in some palette floating around your collection. I'm using my Natasha Denona palette because, girl, I paid good money for this palette. And I'm going to use it every chance I get. And it's just a beautiful formula. It's easy to work with. So we're going to stick with this color story today, just to show you kind of the easiest way to incorporate blue eyeshadow into your makeup repertoire without getting overwhelmed, without it being too much. I do think a lot of us avoid blue because it can be like a intimidating shade, but as long as you know how to pair it and make it flow into your skin tone, it's really not that hard to wear. Now, my favorite little trick just to include, if you're having trouble getting your blending shades or your transitions, your crease shades, your brownie tones to blend into your skin tone, take your bronzer and use that to marry it in to the rest of your face, because you'll have your bronzer obviously applied where you apply your bronzer. It kind of just makes it flow into the skin tone and like it belongs there a little bit more, even though obviously it doesn't, but it kind of tricks the eye and creates the illusion that it should belong on your face. You know, obviously use a bronzer that suits your skin tone, works for you the best, and that is a shade that you know complements your skin tone, which I think we all probably have a bronzer or a contour shade, something like that, that is flattering to us personally, and that's kind of the trick to it, really. If you're having some struggle there, just use your bronzer, kind of blend those edges. I'll show you in just a minute how to do that. Let's go ahead and get started on this look. And I first dive into a shade called Chasm, and we're gonna just bring that through the transition and crease area and start our look out. I'm gonna grab a brush, a fluffy brush, hopefully, if I find one. Hello. And we're gonna take this through the transition, kind of a little bit higher. And this is our lightest shade, and it's just a very light, kind of orangey, warm brown. Nothing super unique. You can find this in a million palettes. Even e.l.f. has a palette with these colors in there. I'll link some below that I think are good choices if this is the kind of vibe you're going for with your blue eyeshadow, or a way that you're wanting to take your blue eyeshadow looks. You obviously don't have to do this exact thing. There's plenty of ways to wear blue, which will be in some upcoming videos. I'm gonna kind of show you some more examples, and I'm pretty sure I talked about at the beginning of this video about where we can go more of a peachy direction, or kind of a rosy direction, or a cool tone direction. This is just kind of my easy way of doing it, that I think is more universal, I guess you could say. I can kind of take looks either way because I'm very neutral. The only struggle I have sometimes is the blue competing with the blue of my eyes. It can kind of make them look a little dead sometimes, depending on what shade I use with it. And to me, incorporating the warm tones in makes my eyes pop, and the blue doesn't compete with my iris color. Yeah, just something like that. Just a nice little dusting of a light warm brown. I like to blend my eyeshadow out. You don't have to do this exact placement as me. This is just what works on my goofy little eyes, my little shrimp eyes. Now, obviously we're going quite warm today, so we're leaning into that more orangey tones. Let's take the shade called Ripe, which is a much more reddy orange, a little bit more vibrant brown. And I'm gonna take that on a smaller brush because we're gonna do a little more concentrated. So I'm gonna take that on a tapered blending brush, and we're gonna bring that a little bit lower into that socket line right there. I don't really focus on my natural crease, I focus on my socket line. And we're just gonna let that blend into the Chasm shade, our lighter warm brown, and just let it all flow together and marry like so. And yes, my swatches are still in my arm because my makeup wipe dried out. I'm not getting another one. I'm just gonna build it up a bit to the depth level that I want. I tend to pull my darker shades out just a bit more, elongate the eye. That's just a me thing. Your placement can be whatever you want. That just gives me a little bit more lift to my eyes because I have a heavy brow bone. All right, and if that's looking a little stark, you can go back to your original brush and maybe a little bit of your first shade and just kind of work those edges just a bit and blend them out. Looking very pumpkin-y right now. And don't worry if you get outside the lines, we're gonna clean that up. That's why I always do my eyes first. And I say, especially working with a blue, always do your eyes first before you do your foundation, because blue tends to have fallout in my experience. And when it drops down here, it can look real bad. If there's that bluey cast right there, it can make you look really sick and really washed out, which can happen with blue eyeshadow anyway. That's why I like to balance it with something warm. I'll go back to my little tapered crease and just build up a little more depth. So I'm going to jump into a little bit of a darker brown. I think we'll take Antique. It's just a kind of, just this shade right here. It's just a deeper, more clay brown. And just work that right into this portion. A little bit more into the socket. And just builds up a little more depth right there. I like a lot of depth in the crease, again, because I have that very hooded eyes. And it makes my eyes look bigger. Right. Nice, warm, reddy brown eye going. Again, always go back with that original blending brush or a clean blending brush. And just make sure everything is flowing nice and cohesively. And you can always layer shades and kind of paint to get to the point that you want. You know, it's not always going to just be the one or two shades. Sometimes a look may take a little more finessing, especially when you're dealing with a little bit more of a tricky shade like blue. You're going to want to maybe finesse the look a little more and take a little more time to do your look. And take a little bit more of that orangey shade, making sure all that is still visible and looking the way that I want it. You don't have to go this hard in with your color. You could just do a light wash. That's more of a personal preference thing. This is more about just colors and pairings rather than placement. Now we can go in with our blues. I'm going to take a smaller brush where I have a lot of control because I don't want my blue going crazy. Even though I've done my, even though I'm doing eyes first, I still want to have some control. It's just easier in the long run, less to clean up. And I'm going to jump into my darkest blue first, which is called Symbol. This one has a little bit more green in it, which I kind of like. So we're going to take just a little bit of that. This is a very deep bluey shade. Enigma is this one right here. And again, this one's a little bit more unique. I think you more likely probably have a shade closer to this, but either one, it's going to kind of play the same on the eye. I'm going to start that right out here on this outer corner. I think that pulls too green. Yeah, I think that's pulling a little too greeny teal. We're going to go back to Enigma. That's the more blue. Kind of a deep royal blue right here. I feel like that one's going to pull too green for what I'm trying to show you. So we'll just layer that on top. It'll be fine. There we go. I'm just going to take that on this outer corner right here and start to very carefully soften that edge after most of the pigment is down and let it flow into those browns. Now you don't want to overblend because it will get murky and you will start to get that kind of muddy shade. That happens when you're blending complementary tones, is that they cancel each other out and you just get kind of a mud. But next to each other, they complement and look beautiful. Building that up to the depth level that I want. Jeez, I cannot get that word out sometimes. And just very, very gently creating a soft blend between those two shades without it getting murky. That will probably be the thing that you have to practice the most at, is not over blending your blues, but still creating that soft transition between the blue and the brown where it's not harsh, not a harsh line. Unless, you know, you want to do a cut crease, go for it. That'll counteract that little problem. But I'm not like a huge, like, full-on cut crease kind of gal. I like very smoky, flowy, watercolor painted looks. I'm gonna clean my little brush off here. I'm gonna take a flat brush now. We're gonna go into the more punchy blue. And if you wanted to, you could add more depth with a darker shade or like a black right out here to really deepen it up if that was something you wanted to go for. Because, I mean, it does make it a little easier sometimes. And you don't have to take like a matte blue like out here or anything. You could just use a black shade or a dark brown and go straight in with your shimmer and have it flow into that. I'm just throwing this one in there because I know the matte blues tend to be in a lot of palettes as well in this kind of shade. So just want to show you how to incorporate it. Obviously, you could also take this shade just all the way across the lid, be a beautiful matte look. Or like what we're going to do, we're going to take the blue brighter shimmer, very royal blue, and bring it on the lid here and maybe kind of simulate just a touch of a cut crease vibe. But again, you can do that any way you want. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and show you bringing this shade all over the lid, what that looks like, just so you can get an idea. And, you know, the tone of blue is going to vary within the palette, but 9 times out of 10, a blue similar to this, just that kind of royal blue, that pop of blue it's in most palettes, is going to work with a warm brown beautifully. And it's a very common color story. But I feel like the blue can be somewhat intimidating. I've had so many palettes with blues in it, and I never touch the blue just because I'm like, it's not my favorite color. I don't like blue, honestly. But there's certain tones of blues that I think are beautiful on the eye. Like, I like this blue. I like that very subculture, you know, ABH subculture kind of blue, that more teal blue, which this palette is like subculture leveled up. But you go ahead and take, you know, this type of blue and get more of a sultry look to the eye, the matte blue. And again, just softly diffuse those edges and don't let it blend too high or too far into your warm browns. If you feel like you need some more depth in that crease, you can take your deepest brown on a smaller brush. Like I would recommend like an E25. And you could take that deepest brown that you used initially and just work it right around that edge. You could use an even smaller brush if you wanted to. But just to kind of ground that a little further. I do a lot of back and forth when I'm doing my eyeshadow, just because I'm particular. And I like to experiment and play and see what really works the best. And trying to keep these shades concentrated without getting murky is going to be I think the biggest challenge with this type of look. Orangey shade, and punch it up a bit if it's feeling like it's lost within the color. Because sometimes once you put that lid color on, the transition may feel like it needs a little more. But this is a rough idea of how the matte blue could look all over the lid. And I think that's very pretty though. You know, throw on some liner and some lashes, you gotta look. Now, so I want to go ahead though and put in that shimmery blue just because it's so pretty and I feel like it would just amp it up even more. A blue metallic is just gorgeous. So we're gonna take the shade in this palette called Aqueous. It's a weird word, Aqueous. But this is also a pretty common shade to find in a lot of palettes. Oh yeah, that's gorgeous. Brings in a bit more of a denim blue or ocean blue maybe. See how that just punches it up even more and just, I think this is a pretty evening look for summer, this kind of color story. Like imagine you're in Hawaii and you're going out for the evening. Santorini. I would not be mad at a trip to Santorini. That's all I'm saying. It looks so beautiful there. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and finish up my face makeup, and we'll be back to do some finishing touches. I'm going to show you how to complete this look and make it look finished, polished, and perfect. And easy, and not look like it's just too much. You're not going to look like Mimi Bobek type of vibe. This is more of a elevated blue eyeshadow. We're not going to look like we're coming from the 70s or 80s here. Even though I love that look, I did a very 70s inspired blue look the other day. I'll link it in the eye, and I paired it with peach. And yeah, I loved it so much. It's a very kind of a denim-y, murky blue with a peach lip and peach blush. I was in love with that look. It's very Love Witch inspired, so I'll link that above. And I do want to create a look using a very vibrant, pretty peach, maybe even a rosier tone through the crease, pairing it with a more muted, different type of blue to kind of show you some variety. God, I gotta stop drinking so much matcha before I film because I can't shut the fuck up. All right, back to the look now. I've just done my complexion and a little bit of contouring. Let's jump back over to our palette that we're using. And as you can see, we have a little bit of an abrupt disconnect there with the eye and the face, which is normal when you do your eyes before your face. And a lot of times I just take a clean brush and just kind of blur those edges with a little bit of my face powder just to really soften things out. But to further blend it, I'm going to do a little touch-up work just in the crease area just to see if there's anything I want to tweak. So I'm going to do that real quick. And I'm just going to take my first transition shade that we used on a little brush and just kind of softly smooth things around. Make sure everything looks nice and blended. Nothing's muddy. All right. And now with my biggest fluffy brush, I'm gonna kind of make sure it's clean and there's no product on it. You can take a clean brush, obviously. And what I'm gonna do now is take my bronzer, which I'm gonna apply to the rest of the face as well. But I'm gonna use my Patrick Ta bronzers because that's one I like, and the powder portion. And just take a little bit of that on my fluffy brush and run it right here. And just let that kind of flow into the face a little bit more. And a little bit right in here. That just kind of makes things marry together. It's very subtle, but it's just kind of is that little bit that's needed. So work it right into that transition a little bit. You could start with your bronzer if you wanted to. I just like to do that after, I don't know. Just to see how much I need kind of thing. Now I'm going to take the bronzer through the rest of the face as I normally would. Get my brush. And you'll start to see how it feels just a little more cohesive at this point. And we're going to complement everything with a warm blush. I would recommend use whatever bronzer suits your skin tone the best. That way it just feels a little more native to the face that way. And it kind of just makes those tones feel like they belong. I'm just gonna warm up the perimeter. I'm going a little bit bronzier today, a little warmer on the skin. You can see how that starts to flow together just a little bit better. I don't know how well it's translating on camera, but in person, it's kind of hard to show subtle differences on camera just because things get a little washed out in the lighting. That's why I kind of went a little heavier on the eyeshadow so you could kind of get the idea. I probably would not go this hard in real life. Let's finish the lower lash line now real quick. You could bring the blue on the lower lash line. You could do a blue liner that matches in the waterline. That can look great. I feel like the lid is enough of a pop that I'm going to take the brown on the lower lash line. That's just a personal preference and the way I like to do my eyeshadow. You could do whatever color you want or do it either way you want. Even if you didn't want to put, say, this blue all over the lid, you could just take the blue right here and have your warm browns on the lid and it'll look beautiful. I love that, just that pop of like liner kind of look on the lower lash line. It looks great. I'm going to take my deepest brown, which is Antique, here on a little smudge brush and just run that along. Let that flow up into the upper eyeshadow so there's no disconnect. Being mindful not to get any blue on my brush. And to clean up any fallout I had, I just used my face primer and a Q-tip before I did my face makeup. And with this palette, there's really not much drop down at all, but a lot of blue eyeshadow it just seems powdery to me a lot of times. And just making sure all that is kind of cohesive and connecting. I have a hair in my lash. And maybe tuck a little soft, small blending brush with a bit of that transition shade. And just run it right underneath. Again, this is all going to be up to you, your placement and stuff. This is just how I like to do mine. And really just like to make sure everything is very cohesive and blending all together. You could even take a little bit of your orangey brown and just tuck that right in there. A little bit more of a pop to really enliven your eyes, especially if you have bluer or green eyes or grayish eyes, light eyes rather. Adding that little bit of orange into here is gonna really help them not get lost in the blue eyeshadow. I think blue eyeshadow is stunning on hazel eyes and brown eyes. That's where blue eyeshadow shines. And especially like deeper skin tones, olive skin tones, blue can look so gorgeous. It's just a little trickier if you're fair and have light eyes, because it can really kind of make you look dead. This is a little e.l.f. Tapered powder brush, actually. I like to use it to just tickle around those edges. Just because it's like a giant blending brush. You can really get in there and make sure things are looking nice and soft. Now I'm going to do a little bit of eyeliner. I think a small little wing would just kind of finish this look, and maybe some lashes. So let's go ahead and get that on. Do I have a liquid liner? I'm just doing a very subtle little wing. I'm not huge into like big wings these days. I'm going to tight line my upper waterline, put on some mascara and lashes, and we'll be right back. Alright, and we're back with lashes, and I touched up my brows as well. So, for blush, just to really tie into the look, I feel like I want to include blush and kind of the fixings of the look, the finishing touches in this, because I feel like that's important to tie into the eyes. It all goes together. I feel like these lashes look huge. These are a little black dress from Kiss. I love these. I really just like the shape of them. And yeah, I feel like I've got a lot of eye makeup on. I feel a little over the top today. But yeah, for blush, I want to go with something very orangey and peachy because that just ties in. This is, I think, White Peach from e.l.f. It's one of the bite-sized blushes. I just picked this up the other day, and I really like that color, and I think that will just go perfect with this. So I'm gonna grab my blush brush. I want to see how the shimmer shade performs first. I'm gonna do it kind of low, like right here, just as a little test. I think the shimmer might be a little too deep in this, the shiny one. I'm gonna take a little bit of that, and I'm gonna just pop it right over here where I usually apply my blush. I'm gonna let it tie into the eye. So I'm going to like a tropical themed party tonight also, so I feel like this looks appropriate. Not really a party, it's a dinner. I don't feel over the top with this look for that being festive. I'm even taking that kind of like right out here just to tie in. But everything's kind of flowing together. And just whatever's left on the brush, just kind of bringing it around the face a little. Now for highlighter, I think I want to go with something kind of warm and golden-ish. So I think, even though I didn't use this for the contour today, the highlight in the Charlotte Tilbury little sculpt palette I think will look nice. This is a beautiful highlight. It has a slight bit of that candle lit warmth, she says. Okay, so that's the face done. Now for finishing touch on the eyes, I do want to put an inner corner highlight. And I think I'm going to do some kind of a little bit gold. Yeah, I think I'm going to take a little bit of the shade called Queen, which is just a nice warm golden champagne type of shade. And just pop that on the inner corner. I think something gold on the inner corner looks really pretty with this kind of look. I really like putting like a pure gold, you know, on the inner part. I think that looks really nice with this color. For this type of look. I've done that before. I'll insert a picture. This just, yeah, that complements and just kind of opens the eye a little bit, because I know the lids can look a little heavy with the lashes and the dark color. Adding that little pop right in here just opens things up. I'm just going to take it just a little bit right to this tear duct. So that is that. Now for lips, I think I'm going to continue in this warm orangey vein and go with Cannoli from Jason Wu. I love this lipstick, the little Jason Wu Hot Fluff Blush and Lip. I think they're like 3-in-1. You can do an eyes, blush, lip, and they're super, super long wearing, but they're very comfortable and light. They're beautiful, beautiful lipsticks. The shades are stunning. I think this color will go great with this. So I'm going to line my lips just a little bit. See, this is a very orangey brown, yeah, very kind of dusty orange, kind of nudie shade. It's so pretty. It's like burnt looking maybe. Yeah, that's the color. And of course you could do a nude lip, whatever color lip you want. I think this looks really pretty with a nude lip as well. I think I'm going to knock down the pigmentation on this a little bit. Kind of feels a little fall. So I'm going to blot it. Just get that little blot so it's not so pigmented. And I'm going to take a gloss, Maybelline Lifter Gloss in Amber over top. And that is basically how I'd do this kind of blue eyeshadow look. I will be right back. I'm going to style my hair, close out the video, give you a final look. And yeah. Okay, so here we are with the look all complete. I think it came out good. I hope you enjoyed this video and kind of learned something from my ramblings here. And yeah, I think this is just an easy way to wear blue eyeshadow that kind of works for the majority. It may not work for you. That is up to you. It is all personal preference and what you like. I just want to show you something kind of easy to do with all those blue eyeshadows we end up in with so many palettes, those warm brown palettes with the pop of blue. So yeah, look out for more episodes in this series where I'll be showing you different color combinations. We're going to do how to wear green. We're going to do blue and peach. I'm going to show you some more combinations of blue for sure, but I will be tackling other kind of not the easiest colors to wear, such as green and purple even, if that is something that interests you. Mustard, let me know. What colors do you struggle with to wear on your eyes? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy this video and would like to see more in this type of vein. Yeah, that is all for today though. Thank you for hanging out with me. And I will see you guys in the next one. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye now.